All right. Hey, everybody. This is Kai Deering, independent associate with PPLSI, Legal Shield, and IDShield. And today is Thursday, the 25th. And I'm excited to be able to come to you today on, actually, it's Friday. Sorry, my bad. Friday. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. Hello. I'm excited to come to you Friday, November 25th. This is the eighth one of these installments of we're talking about identity theft, and I'm so excited to be able to share with you. Now we've done, it's funny, so we've done a lot. We've done who's doing it, we've done what it is and how they're doing it and why they're doing it and some of the facts and the database me and all that good stuff. And so today I'm thrilled to be able to let you know that we're going to be headed in towards really some of the prevention tips. So keep in mind that you cannot prevent identity theft at all. We're going to just talk to you about some best practices that should reduce it. And then if you haven't seen the episodes, the first three go over the types of identity theft, then we go over the facts, then we go over kind of who's doing it, how they're doing it, the database view, and then here we are today, really going to be able to share with you, get into the meat and the nuts and bolts. And if you would like to, and you're on the show with us live, you can interact and share with us any questions that you might have as we go through this information today. We're also going to do tomorrow, which will be Small Business Saturday. And we're also going to be coming to you on Cyber Monday. And that should conclude this series. So I'm excited to share with you some tips on preventing. So we went over, that they steal your purses, identity theft, but let's talk about, these other ones. So I'm going to hit each one. People working for you. So we're not talking about hacks right now. We're talking about old school. How do they get your information? So people working for you. Let me give you a couple of examples. If you've ever had, maybe you have an ailing or senior parent and that comes in and cares for them. Maybe you have a housekeeper. You have somebody that actually comes into the home. And I'll give you an example. I had somebody that had a Comcast employee come into their home, and they had some bills sitting on the counter. And when they left, those bills were gone. And they were like, oh my gosh, they stole some of that information. So be careful about who's working for you. So my housekeeper, I love her. She's amazing. I've worked with her for 21 years, but she's licensed and bonded. So has a sense of security for a lot of us. So I would make sure that anybody working for you is licensed and bonded. And I also would take some extra care to potentially lock up your sensitive information. So if you've got your tax information, lock it in a filing cabinet. But if you've got a pet sitter, a babysitter, make sure you know who's in your home. Again, I would pay the money and do a background check if I had somebody coming in that I wasn't really familiar with. So let's also talk about surfing. Now, this is sort of the oldest thing in the book for how thieves get your data. And thank you for joining us here today. You're welcome to comment or ask any questions. So we're going to hit this slide today. So let me give you an example of shoulder surfing. With people being able to have phones, like we all have our phones, and they can take pretty good pictures now. So if you're at Costco and you're writing a check, now I know a lot of people don't do checks. I do checks still at Costco because they want it. You got to be aware of who's behind you, because they could be taking pictures of your credit card information, or when you're writing a checkout. So just be conscious of who is behind you, because shoulder surfing is still a big thing. It really does happen out there. Wireless communications. I'll tell you how that will play into this as well. When you're on a risky Wi-Fi, there's a couple things I would do. One is you can buy a VPN proxy. Our services offers one included in there. If that's really all you wanted, they're $10, and you can purchase that. And I was at a cybersecurity event a couple of months ago, and they said that the biggest challenge for companies that have ransomware, get a cyber attacks, is remote workers, because they're on risky Wi-Fi. So I would tell you that even if you don't purchase our IDShield, that's not a problem. Do buy some sort of VPN proxy, and all that does is it encrypts information as you're on risky Wi-Fi's that are open to the public. Second thing I would tell you on that is be very mindful of when you go on and you're looking at the different Wi-Fi's that are available. Let's say you're at the airport. There will be some spoofing ones on there too that will look very similar, but will be for you to be able to go on a open network of somebody else that might be a criminal. So I would always ask, the information desk, what is the name of the open Wi-Fi, so that you make sure that you're at least that much more secure. The third thing I would do when it comes to, Wi-Fi and wireless communications. If you don't have the VPN, you're not sure about, what is the trusted, Wi-Fi, I would definitely take buy a little MiFi. So I have, a hotspot that I'm able to use. You can use your phone, but at least that's super secure. So those would be a couple things I would do on that to help reduce your risk. Telephone scams. So let's talk a little bit about telephone scams. Those have been on the rise. And so they will call you and say, hey, this is your Visa company calling. Did you buy a boat in Wyoming? It would be kind of funny, but did you buy a motorboat in Wyoming? No, it wasn't me. It's like, great. Well, give me all of your social security so we can prove it wasn't you. And now they've got all your information, give us your credit card number, all that good stuff. So if you have not initiated the contact when it comes to telephone scams, so I would actually pick up the phone, grab your credit card, go to the number on the back of your credit card and call them direct. So that happened to me pretty recently. I was traveling. They called me and said, hey, are you in, whatever area of the country right now? And I was, but I said, I am, but let me go ahead and call direct. So I hung up, I pulled the credit card out of my wallet, which is my phone, and was able to literally just call the number on the back. And they said, yes, we did call you. Yes, that was legit. I said, great. I was able to answer their questions and move along my way. So if you've not initiated the contact, I would definitely do that. So we're talking about how they get your information and prevention tips. So let's go on to credit card frauds as well. And people can, it was funny. There was a gentleman that I was working with once, and he said, I just wanted to see how lax these credit card companies are. And he's like, so I got a credit card in my dog's name. So we know there's a lot of credit card fraud. People can open up credit cards in their name. And that's the most risky, is because even if you have a monitoring service, which you should have, we have one as well, you wouldn't sometimes know if a new account was opened up depending on the type of monitoring that you have. Ours will look at new accounts, but if you're just looking at your credit card statements every month, you're judicious, you would see erroneous charges, but you wouldn't see if somebody opened up a new credit card in your name. So be mindful of that as well. Check your credit cards, but also check report from time to time. And there is a free creditreport.com. Just be careful. That free creditreport.com is not always free. They're going to ask for your credit card. Don't do it, because then they'll try to sign you up for a program. There's also computer fraud, and just be really mindful of this as well. So let's talk about this. Just your computer can be a really big challenge. So if it dies on you, make sure you take it into a professional that can wipe it. Make sure that it's clean. They ask you to donate some of your phones and your electronic equipment. Just make sure all of those are wiped before you throw it away, recycle it, re-gift it, what have you. Also, it seems pretty obvious, but if you are on a hotel's computer and you're doing things, really refrain from logging into your bank account. The only thing I would do on a public computer at the library, or the only thing I would do at a hotel computer, is really Google something. Everything else I would do from my phone, just because it's risky on there. And I get it, you're traveling, you don't want to bring your cumbersome computer, but you got to look some stuff up. So just be really mindful of that as well. Let's also talk about mail fraud. This is a relatively new addition, because if you'll notice, the IRS is not going to call you. If they do, definitely hang up, because that's not legit. But they do send letters, and there have been some scams with letters going out in the mail and saying, hey, you've been potentially a victim of identity theft. There's been multiple accounts opened up in your name. You should probably respond to this letter, call this phone number. So we recently got one of those in the mail. And so I Googled the phone number just to make sure it was legit. And it was. And good luck trying to reach the IRS to prove that you are who you are, because you're going to be on hold forever. But Google the number, make sure it's legit. And again, when in doubt, if you did not initiate the contact, reach out and make sure that you've done that yourself. Dumpster diving. It was interesting. The government is a real right place lose your information. In fact, Consumer Reports did an expose in San Francisco with the disposal of their sensitive information. So they were just putting that in a dumpster outside, wasn't shredding it. Since then, they have done some measures to make sure that's shredded. But the challenge is, they're going to dumpster dives. There was a rental car company in Redwood City where they could trace all of the breaches back to there. So ask people, how do you dispose of our information? Where does it go? Do you shred? Is it cross-cut shredding? It's okay to ask those questions. How are you going to dispose of my sensitive information? That's a huge problem. Phone and utility fraud. In fact, I met a gentleman who owned multiple properties out in Modesto. And he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was paying for somebody else's utility bills because he owns like 4 or 5 out there. Just didn't even notice that somebody else put their, home on his, utility bill, and he'd been paying it for years, didn't even notice. So audit that, see what's there. That's relatively easy to be able to, open up an account in your name, put it on somebody else's name. So do audit your utility bills. If there's something higher than normal, doesn't look right, seems different, definitely, check it out. Let's talk about internet searches. So unfortunately, our information is out there. And I told you about Frank Abnegale. He was at a seminar once and asked somebody, well, just tell me your first and last name, and I'll come back to you tomorrow. And he was able to the next day and have literally everything on him, because between, paying for searches, whether it comes to, background checks, you can get a lot of information. Searches, oh my gosh, we talked about this a couple days ago. Searches that you can do for family history trees and things like that. Think about it. They can bring people to justice with DNA, but they can figure out your mother's maiden name. They can figure out all kinds of things with your information on internet searches. So that is a big challenge right now as well. Let's talk about how thieves get your information. It's skimming. So give you a couple of examples of this. I'm really proud. A lot of things since the pandemic, they will actually, especially at the airports, they will bring you the credit card reader and you can slip your credit card right in there. I'm so happy to see that. Not everywhere does that. So what happens is, there was a bust at Dave and Buster's right before the pandemic where there were some opportunistic servers. They would take your credit card. They had a skimmer in their pocket. They would skim it, get your electronic information on a skimmer. The day, of course, they would charge you for the real, credit card. And then at the end of the day, they were selling those credit cards off the skimmer to some organized crime. So a couple of things that I would do in there. Again, I'm so happy to see that they're bringing those out to the tables now. That was big in Europe way before it was here. I don't know why it took so long for us to come on board with that, but I really was appreciative of that as well. So if you have a credit card, it's always, number one, we talked about, always better to use your credit card, not your ATM. Your rights and protections on there are a lot stronger. And then number two, if you're really concerned about it, pay cash. I do pay cash a lot of times because I'm worried about it. And they're like, cash, sometimes I don't even know how to deal with it. What do I do with this cash, right? It's funny. So, but if they bring the skimmer to the table, I love that. It's so much more safe. Your credit card has not been out of your view sight, the entire time. So I really appreciate that. We want to also, commend and reward the behavior that we like to continue to see. We talked about a little bit about computers and just data being left on public machines. We're really careful about outsourcing. In fact, I ask people where they're going to be outsourcing our information. So this is how sometimes they get your information. So H&R Block had a bunch of social securities. They had all their transactions done overseas. And then they were held ransom for ransomware to get it back. So I ask people, who's going to be doing the processing? Are you doing it personally? Are you outsourcing it? Where does it go? So outsourcing can be a big challenge, especially when it comes, like I said, to taxes and some other just general processing. I don't want my information being processed anywhere that I don't have control of it. So sometimes it's going to cost you more to go to more of a mom and pop. Just make sure that they've got secure systems as well. Also want to talk to you about corporate accidents. In fact, there was a lot of this has happened over the years, and some of them are, losing laptops that had your important information. Or there was one where, Bank of America was just off a little bit on their 1099s and whatnot, and their bank returns. And so the person in front of you got that information. They had some whoops, had some wrong things. So there's some corporate accidents that happen from time to time too. And this is how they're getting your information. So it's people working for you, other than big data breaches, which we talked about. So the people working for you, shoulder tapping, wireless, communications, grabbing that info, telephone scams, credit card scams, computer fraud, mail fraud, dumpster diving, phone fraud schemes, skimming, information left on public machines, outsourcing, and corporate accidents. So let's talk a little bit more. And as we still have a little bit of time today, we're going to go into some of the prevention tips. Actually, in the essence of time, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do prevention tips tomorrow. So today we've gone through how are thieves getting your information. Tomorrow we'll go through a few more prevention tips and some things like that. So we'll go over all of that tomorrow. But with today, just want to thank you so much for your time. And tomorrow we'll see you back here live, where I will share some more valuable information on identity theft, seeing as how it's, Black Friday today. It'll be Small Business Saturday and then Cyber Monday. With that, please tune in tomorrow and make sure that you can ask questions. I will answer them in real time. So with that, thanks so much. Take care, take charge. We'll see you over the top. Bye, everybody.